What up, though? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lawrence Report. And we are on episode 4 of BMF, and the title is called The Prodigal Son. So that means Meech is back in the Dirty D. I'm talking about back in Detroit. Let's get into it, y'all. So in episode 4, we see Meech, and he's talking to Loco, right? Loco has a shipment that needs to be processed. We're talking about the drugs. We're talking about the weight. Like I said, it needs to be processed, right? It needs to be picked up. But it's at this airport back in Meech, where Meech is from, which is basically Detroit, right? And Local tells him, said, listen, I need you to go pick it up. It's $250. And we're going to find out later that there's a mix-up when it comes to $250 and how much is really $250 when it comes to them moving the weight, right? So like I said, Local tells him, I need you to pick it up. But before they can do that, this is actually Cena's pilot, right? Basically, this is a white guy who is a pilot, and he's flying these drugs, but it's kind of like private first class. So nobody would ever expect him to handle this type of weight, right? But Loco isn't exactly sure if he can trust this pilot. So Meech ends up talking to him. They want to make sure this guy is not a fed, but he seems to be crystal clear. Everything's good to go. So Meech now is getting ready to return home to Detroit. But before he decides to go back home to Detroit, he has to handle some things back home. I'm talking about, well, I should say, when I say back home, say back in Atlanta. I'm talking about Angel. Now, Angel is still indecisive about, if she should stay or should she leave and go back to Green. Now, as Meech is getting ready to return home back to Detroit, the old crew, they welcome him with open arms, but he sees Terry, and it's like a minor little bit of tension here, right? But at the same time, Terry admits to Meech that, hey, listen, I'm sorry that, I'm not necessarily welcoming you with open arms, but this whole CPS thing kind of got me messed up right now, but I am happy to see you. So, Meech feels on me. He's like, listen, Loco got this product right here at the Macomb airport. I got to go pick it up. I'm going to need your assistance with this right here. This is 250 keys worth of weight right here that can change everything. And I really need, Meech is basically saying, I really need to impress Loco, but I need Terry, my brother, to help me out as well. And speaking of Officer Brian, we see him with his former officer here. They finally link up. I'm talking about Officer Chen, right? And he lets her know that, I could have let you basically die, but I kind of saved your life that we saw in the last episode, right? She said, listen, once I find out what you are doing, because she knows that he's gone rogue. He's basically officially a crooked cop, right? She's like, listen, once I find out, I'm telling everybody. But Detective Brian is like, listen, if you tell everybody, make sure you tell about the confession and about what you did when it came to those bricks. I'm talking about those drugs that you had next to Saint's body. And as far as Terry, we see him and Markeisha, they are at like this gambling parlor, right? Chen, she's like, listen, I covered my tracks. I learned from the best. I learned how to get dirty. A lot of favors, basically, when it came to Boom, right? Is going to come around. But we do see Henrietta. She's in the building as well. And, she's talking her junk. And she's like, listen, I know, she tells Terry this, that I know that you messed up my shipment. Shortly after that, we see, Henrietta and Brian, they're linking up. And she tells him that, Meech is basically back in town. And she tells him, like, listen, I need you to ambush the shipment. He's like, yeah, I got it. So we know that Meech is back in Detroit, right? So he has to meet this pilot by the name of Ian, right? And it's 250, that's what we thought, pounds of drugs, right? That has to be transported, right? But considering that Loco, sometimes his language is broken. We thought just 250, plain and simple, but it's actually 250,000. So Meech walks over to the plane. He sees all these drugs. He's in full panic mode because the language barrier messed up everything. That whole deal, 250 versus 250,000, really put Terry and Meech deep into a hole. In fact, Terry has even bigger problems to deal with because CPS is coming to investigate the restaurant that he allegedly, works at with Nicole, right? Nicole, she's growing up. she's growing to a young woman. And, she has some friends over. There's this one boy who, she kind of has the giggly eyes for. And her mother walks in the house, Lucille. She's upset. She's like, listen, where's your father? I told you can't have any boys over. So, again, Nicole is going to be fed up. We know that Meech has to transport this package, right? So he takes this white van, and him and this pilot, they're on their merry way traveling with all the drugs in the back, right? And they end up going to this restaurant. And this is kind of like the prime location where the interception is supposed to go down, right? But, as the pilot goes into the restaurant, he's like using the bathroom. He's talking to these other two officers, right? And guess who comes out of nowhere? We see Bryant in here. Now, he already knows about the package. He even waves at Meech to let him know that, yeah, I'm on to you. I know what you're about to do, right? So, but because of the smooth talking of how the pilot did it, he flipped the script on Bryant. So now it looks like Bryant is about to be in jail. And this right here is one of my favorite parts of this episode right here. We get to Charles and Lucille. Now, Charles has actually been doing things around the house, painting drywall, because he knows there's another man that's trying to threaten him on his territory, right? And Charles asked Lucille, when were you going to tell me that Dr. Maurice was in town and that he wrote you out this big old check? Because we know that all three of them have history going back in the day. She's like, listen, I know you're not questioning me after what you done did with Mabel, right? So that was a good read right there in itself. We know that Lucille is a concerned parent when it comes to Nicole, basically about her getting involved with the boys and could potentially be getting pregnant, right? So what she does, she goes back to Dr. Maurice. And, her and the doctor, she tells him that she really hasn't been honest with him, that her and Charles have basically been separated for quite some time and basically are heading to divorce, right? And they both basically confess that they kind of have feelings for each other. And they're in his office. They're fondling, kissing. And, she stops and she's like, listen, I don't know if I can do this. And the doctor's like, listen, whenever you're ready, I'll be right here. So just let me know. Because of the mess up, with 250 versus 250,000, right? Terry and Meech are working overtime. In fact, we see them basically counting this money one by one, bill by bill. They even stick their hands into the water to clean their hands from, because we all know money can be dirty. So these guys right here, they're about to work around the clock to get this shipment, to get this deal done. After the all-night grind that Meech and Terry, did, the mission came out successful. The pilot was able to transport the weight and everything seemed to be good, right? So in order for a celebration, now that we all know Meech is, back in town, he's going to be in town for a little bit. Nikki, talking about Nicole, she decides to throw a family dinner. This dinner is all about Nicole. Nicole absolutely goes off. We all know from season 1 to when the show was created that Nicole has really only been the normal person with common sense in this family right here, right? So she completely goes off the rails, like goes off the track. She lets everybody know that I'm tired of y'all worried about me and when it comes to boys. Special shout out to Rolly, man. He comes over, basically, he tells Terry and Meech that, I've been thinking, I kind of want to get out the game. We see Meech get a phone call. It's none other than Stax, right? Stax apologized, talking about 2 Chainz's character. He said, listen, I want to get down. I'm sorry about the whole situation. I want to get back down with the crew. Now, we know that Stax is basically hating from the sideline, right? But at the same time, he feels like when it comes to the whole Ty Washington situation, that Meech hasn't been moving quick enough the way that he wants him to move. In fact, on the tail end of this phone call, we see Stax is in the car, but who he's in the car with? He is in a car with Glock. Yes, the Miami Kingpin himself, Glock. Now, we knew automatically that Stacks could not be trusted. So they are basically going to plot their way into killing Meech and Terry. As always, my two favorite, well, I had several favorite scenes in this area, but some of my favorite scenes was, of course, whenever Meech was like 250 versus 250K. They couldn't figure out the difference with that. Absolutely hilarious. Love the scene with the doctor and Lucille and Charles, you know, because now Charles got to figure out how do I step up to the plate. Lucille was getting hot and heavy with the doctor. That was good. And of course, Nicole, oh my God. Nicole set the whole thing off. Like, she went crazy in this rare. She laid it out for everybody. She gave everybody an incredible read, right? And of course, I told y'all how I felt about Markeisha. Looking so, so good. That's my thoughts, y'all. Episode 4, BMF. Looks like we got a showdown between Glock and the BMF boys on the next episode. As always, thank you for tuning in to the Lawrence Report.